Okay, it's Tuesday night. I'm back in my Tokyo Sandblaster shirt, and I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on Sacrifice, and then I'll turn the camera off and do the same for Impact on Friday or Saturday. The opening match was Inc. versus Mexican America. Basically, it went like this. Inc. would be on the offense, and it would be going okay. Then Sarita and Rosita would interfere, the heels would take the advantage, and the match would get boring for a while. Towards the end, it picked up, and generally I think the match was passable enough, but it was nothing you're going to remember a week from now. And I think if TNA want to get the level of tag team competition back up to where they still claim it's at, then they really need Beer Money and or the Motor City Machine Guns in there, because without at least one of those teams, we're probably not going to do much better than this, considering the rest of the people they have to work with in this division right now. Then the Jarretts came out for a completely redundant promo. Of course, Karen takes 10 fucking minutes to get to the ring, and then Jeff takes way too long to say what he could have said in about 30 seconds. I saw the point, what with setting up Karen's ankle and everything, but you know what? When you've got 9 matches on the card, you're already pressed for time as it is, and you really shouldn't be wasting it on stuff that we can see on Impact every week. Kendrick versus Robbie E in a match that was added over the weekend. Not much to say here. When Kendrick was on the offense, it was passable. When Robbie was on the offense, it was sleep-inducing. And no, I have no idea why Kendrick was wearing that stupid robe the whole match. Mickie James versus Madison Rayne for the umpteen-thousandth time. This match benefited from the story behind it, and having Tara out there definitely helped with the crowd heat. But the match was overbooked with not one but 2 ref bumps and the stupid stuff with the loaded glove that never got over in the first place. They tried to play it up that Tara wasn't sure who she wanted to win, which really did not track at all with her previous comments. Mickie tried her best, but Madison just did what she always does, which is not much. Mickie wins, and Tara's free now, both things that needed to happen. I just hope to God this crappy feud is finally over. Kazarian versus Max Buck for the X Division title. Really good match. Definitely the match of the night. It's just a shame that it hadn't been built up at all, because these guys deserved more crowd reaction, and they really didn't get a whole lot because there was really no feud here. There's some pretty cool spots in the match. The sunset flip powerbomb on the concrete was awesome. A clean finish. It told a story. No overbooking. Thank you. Really good effort from both guys, and I think Max came out of this looking a lot better than he did when he went in, just by virtue of having a competitive match with the champion. That's all it takes sometimes. Max was elevated by a loss here, so everybody wins. Crimson versus Abyss. I was absolutely astounded that they not only let Crimson beat Hogan's Golden Boy, but beat him 100% clean. I think the last guy they let do that was Rob Van Dam at Bound for Glory. They must really be behind Crimson, which is nice to see, because him going over clean was absolutely what should have happened. In my opinion, quote-unquote big man matches tend to be kind of boring most of the time, but I thought this was pretty solid for the most part. You know, the crowd was digging Crimson. That's probably the most over he's been so far. Cool finish, too. I mean, Abyss is like 350 pounds. I don't know how the hell they got him up for a spot like that, but that was really impressive. Great to see Abyss finally put someone over, and actually get someone over. It's about damn time. I just wish he'd do that more often. Beer Money versus Matt Hardy and Chris Don't Call Me Braden Walker Harris. This was a good match, but not a great match. Harris, I'll admit, was in better shape than I expected, but he still looked like he needed to drop a few pounds. And while he didn't embarrass himself, he didn't display anything that made me think, oh my god, they need to sign him to a deal right now. You know, I like the story of the match with Harris avoiding Storm and Beer Money finishing him off with AMW's old finisher. That was cool. The match was fine for a one-and-done type of thing, but I really don't have much desire to see it again or see AMW get back together. I'm going to echo Mike Tenay on this. I think Beer Money have completely surpassed them at this point. AJ Styles versus Tommy Dreamer. This became a no DQ match at some point. I don't know when. I don't believe it was ever advertised. But this was about as good as we're going to get from Tommy Dreamer. AJ carried him very well, and for what it was, this was a good match. But the finish was totally predictable. Bully Ray interferes and Tommy wins. Called it. And what makes it even worse is that Tommy's probably going to win at Sacrifice. They'll have Bully Ray interfere in the match or something. It's just going to be so pointless. Tommy shouldn't even be on TV anymore. And Tommy Dreamer beating AJ Styles, that was really the one point in this pay-per-view that I seriously considered turning off the show in disgust, because that is something that just should not happen ever. The Jarretts versus Kurt Angle in China. There was some wrestling here with Kurt and Jeff, but this was really just a way for Karen to finally get the shit beaten out of her, which is why Chyna was there. That was cathartic to see. And Chyna was extremely over, I won't deny that at all. But bear in mind, she only had to do like 5 moves, and they all looked pretty bad. And that body slam on Jeff where she fell over doing it, that was just horrible. And she was rusty as hell in there, and it really showed. So all things considered, I think Chyna's novelty is going to wear off pretty quickly. I really don't see much of a reason to keep her around once this feud is over. As a temporary special attraction, okay, but not full-time. Sting versus Rob Van Dam. This was easily the best match these guys have had. I'm not going to say it was a great match, because it wasn't, but it was at least good, even though they botched the finish. But finally, we got a decent main event with a clean finish. I definitely liked that. Sting is not capable of what he used to do, but at least it looked like he was putting in effort. And that was my main criticism of him, that I just haven't seen that effort from him for a long time. I mean, my feelings about Sting as the world champion have not changed, but I do appreciate that he at least looks like he's trying now. I still don't think he should be in this spot anymore, but if he's really trying, I'm at least a little more at ease with it. So, honestly, I thought Sacrifice was alright. I mean, not a buzzworthy pay-per-view, it's not something that's going to hook in any new viewers or anything, but for a filler show, it did its job. I was entertained for 3 hours, and I actually did not need my suicide pills this time, and anytime I can say that about a TNA show, it makes me happy, so I found Sacrifice enjoyable. Now let's see if they kept that ball rolling on Thursday. Imagine you're a prisoner on death row. You're about 10 minutes away from your execution, when suddenly the warden gets a call from the judge who sentenced you. The judge changed his mind. He's decided to be lenient. The execution is off. So you breathe a huge sigh of relief. The weight of the world is off your shoulders. You're gonna live. Then the judge calls back. Guess what? He changed his mind again. The execution is back on. So they've strapped your ass in, right? And just when they're about to flip the switch on the electric chair, the judge calls again. Motherfucker changed his mind a 3rd time. You're gonna live after all. So they start unstrapping you, you're practically wetting your pants in relief, you're so happy. Then the warden says, fuck this wishy-washy bullshit. He pulls out his gun and shoots you in the head. That's what this show is like. First, we hear these reports that TNA is going to bring in Isis the Amazon, and I'm thinking, they've lost their damn minds. She's green as hell and nowhere near ready for television. Did they learn nothing from Lacey Von Erich? Then it looks like they've come to their senses, and they decide not to use her after all. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God. Get anyone else. No one could be worse than her. Then Chyna shows up. They put her on pay-per-view. She looks as rusty as a BP pipe and botches some really simple moves. And it's not good, but at least she's only there for 2 shows. And we hear that's all they had planned for her. So I start breathing easy again. Just thanking my lucky stars that at least they didn't bring her in full time. Then ODB comes back. TNA, have you developed some kind of aversion to using talented people from the indies? Jen Blake, Serena Deeb, Christina Von Eerie, Melanie Cruz, Leva Bates. Was there something wrong with all these people? I know casual fans like ODB, but her character is completely one note and was stale as hell by the end of her last run in this company. She's already proven that she can't get over as a heel. All you've ever managed to do is kill her face heat when you've tried to do this in the past, and she's never been particularly good in the ring either, so feuding her with Velvet Sky? Are you kidding me? Is this a joke? That's not going to produce anything good, and you know it. Here's a crazy thought. Instead of giving Velvet another feud when she already has like 5 different ones, Don't you think you should try to find a feud for Mickie James? You know, the Knockouts champion? Mickie was the biggest female star in WWE for several years. Now you've got her. You're probably paying her a shitload of money, but Velvet Sky, the worst woman you have, is suddenly getting a bigger push?
You people are fools!
Then there's the X Division. You do this storyline of the X Division guys defying Bischoff, trying to get some TV time under what I assume is the pretense of ultimately vindicating them. But then you book them into the ground so fast that you don't even give them a chance. The X Division guys have been treated like nobodies for a very, very long time. Then you have Bischoff say that they're nobodies. Then you have Immortal beat them like they're nobodies, proving to the audience that what Bischoff said about them was right. If you want this to work, you have to make them look like they at least have a chance. People aren't going to rally behind them if they can't even get out of the gate. It's the Main Event Mafia Frontline feud all over again. Amazing Red is a 3-time X Division champion and he gets obliterated in less than a minute. If Red had at least put up a fight and had a good competitive match, then I would have been fine with Joe beating him, but you gave him the Brooklyn Brawler treatment here. Last year, Generation Me were taking the Motor City Machine Guns to the limit for the tag team titles. Last Sunday, Max Buck looked like he was on the rise with a really nice credibility-building match with Kazarian, and then you job out Max and Jeremy clean to Eric Bischoff? Eric Bischoff. This ruined Generation Me. How is anyone ever going to take them seriously after they've been beaten clean by Eric fucking Bischoff? I know I've said this before, but why in the blue hell would you book anyone on the roster like that? At least Kazarian saved face by having a good match with Abyss, but the fact that Abyss won the X Division title? Haha! It's a slap in the face. And yeah, I know that's the whole point. I know I'm supposed to get pissed off, but you're taking it too damn far. It doesn't make me want to see the X Division get revenge. It makes me want to turn the TV off because I'm so disgusted by what I'm seeing. You're making these guys look like the biggest chumps on earth, and that was the last thing they needed because the X Division was already at the bottom of the barrel when this thing started. Even if they ultimately go over here, it's not going to matter because just like with the Main Event Mafia Frontline feud, the harm that you're doing to these guys completely outweighs any good that could possibly come out of this. That stuff aside, I did like the new design of the Impact Zone. There's new graphics, new ring ropes. I think the stage was a little different. There was different lighting and a new color palette to the set. I like it. It looks good. They still need to get the hell out of the Impact Zone as soon as possible, but aesthetically, this is an improvement. Nice job there. Also an improvement was the way the show was structured. I was hoping with this whole Wrestling Matters rebranding kick they're on, that they'd start to feature a little more wrestling on the show. It sort of felt like they did that. Most of the matches did seem a bit longer than usual. It wasn't a massive change or anything, but generally it did feel like the flow and the pacing of the show were a lot better. I mean, the emphasis in a lot of the segments seemed to be geared more toward action than talking for a change. Most of the show took place in the arena, and on a whole, the backstage pre-tapes were fewer, shorter, and went by faster. And just by cutting to the chase with these things, they managed to cover all the material they needed to without bogging the show down with a lot of time-consuming, superfluous bullshit they didn't need. And that makes a difference. The change wasn't extreme enough to make me think that the wrestling really does matter, but this was certainly better than what they were doing before. A good example of this was the opening segment. It starts out as another Immortal promo, but then the X Division guys come out and it turns into this big-ass brawl, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, we've seen a hell of a lot of brawls on this show, and it wasn't technically wrestling, but at least it was people hitting each other. And they managed to tell the same story doing this as they could have with another 20-plus minutes of Bischoff talking. And by virtue of those changes alone, I thought this episode came off a lot better than it seemed on paper. And from reading the spoilers, this show looked like a freaking disaster. But just because they presented it a little differently, it was more enjoyable than I expected. Plus, there were clean finishes to the matches for a change, which helped a lot. Also, there were some other things I liked. The segment with Bobby Roode and Ric Flair was good. They're really starting to distinguish Robert Roode now. They're still doing well with Crimson, and for one night, I actually became a fan of Gunner because he beat the shit out of Eric Young, and I popped huge for that because it was awesome. So these things didn't excuse the stupid stuff, but it did seem like there were some areas of the show that took a step forward this week. It remains to be seen if they'll take 2 steps back next week, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.